The Australian Financial Review.
People often look at very successful people in life and think they've been successful their whole life. I don't think that there is a linear pathway. I think that there are many different ways to achieve your goals. Just because it didn't work the first time doesn't mean it's not worth trying again.
Hi, I'm Sally Patton, editor of Boss from the Australian Financial Review, and welcome to 15 Minutes with the Boss, a podcast about success and failure and everything in between, and along the way we're hoping to get some really great advice from our leaders. My guest today is Mark Tepperson, Chief Executive of Baby Bunting. Hi Mark, how are you?
Hi Sally, great to be here.
Now, Mark, as I said, you're the Chief Executive of Baby Bunting, Australia's largest special nursery retailer. You have 76 stores across Australia and New Zealand, and you sell everything from prams and car seats to nappies and baby formula. And my fun fact is that you apparently fit 140,000 car seats a year. Now, Mark, we only have 15 minutes, so I'm going to start the clock right now. My first question is about your morning routine. What does it look like? What time do you get up? What happens?
My typical morning, I'll wake up without an alarm somewhere between 5 and 6:30 in the morning. I start by absorbing the news. So Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, and then locally in Australia, the Australian and the AFR for what's going on. And then I delve into sales reports for how we're tracking for the period. So that gives me a start. And I do that so when I'm looking for themes around changes or things that are going on in our business or around the market or internationally, it helps me with pattern recognition as I kind of prepare for my day and my priorities.
And what time do you get to the office?
I like to spend time in the morning with the kids having breakfast. I don't have a fixed kind of breakfast regime. It can rotate between sourdough toast or yogurt, or if we're making pancakes on the weekend with the kids, I'll partake in that. But as many mornings a week as I can, I try and make sure that there's some good contact time. I've got two girls, 12 and 9, so it's a wonderful time to try and intercept what's going on in the world, but it's a fun time in the morning.
My next question is about a pivotal moment in your career. Can you tell me about a project that you worked on, a promotion that you were given, a job that you went for that changed the trajectory of what you were doing?
Probably the earliest one was I wasn't a great student. It didn't come naturally. I went to a Steiner school early on in my schooling, which was wonderful for my social and emotional development, so my EQ very high. But learning at your own pace was not something that was well suited to my academic style. My parents moved me to a private school when I was in year 5, and I spent many years, in fact, all the way through to year 12, effectively catching up. When I entered year 5, I had reading and writing skills of a year 3. And so that kind of adversity, or that always feeling like you were trying to catch up, was really quite challenging. I didn't know what I wanted to do after school. My parents encouraged me to go to university, and I studied commerce, but I wasn't a good student. I failed the first couple of years of university, and in fact, just before I got to the end of completing my undergraduate degree, I had a job at the Athlete's Foot, and I sold a pair of shoes to the owners of Shoes and Socks, and they invited me to come in for an interview. And that started my career in the footwear industry. So a retail job in university and selling it to a business owner seemingly made some sort of impression. But for somebody that didn't really know what they wanted to do and found academics really hard in my undergraduate, it was a wonderful inflection point for me to follow an opportunity that was made available to me.
And presumably you could sell. That's what they had noticed.
I could sell. The Athlete's Foot has a wonderful training and induction program. And before I was allowed to sell anything to a customer, I had a 3-day intensive training course and I had to sit an exam. The recruiting manager said to me at the time, "Are you sure you want a career in footwear?" Now, I hadn't intended to do anything in retail. I really like mergers and acquisitions. And in fact, I did an internship in Ernst & Young in M&A. corporate finance. I quite liked that. But he asked me this question 3 times. It was almost like the Wizard of Oz. Dorothy clicked her heels 3 times and magically I found myself in the footwear industry for the next 20 years. But that moment really kind of stayed with me.
And how has that feeling that you had at high school of being left behind and feeling that you were struggling to catch up, has that had an ongoing impact on you?
Yeah, I think adversity is something that can shape people in different ways. I found it really hard in high school. I had what I probably thought about back then, didn't know it at the time, was more of an entrepreneurial spirit. So structured learning was not really my specialty or forte, but ideas and making them happen was probably more the pathway that I was more comfortable with. And it took me quite some time to figure that out.
Interesting. Do you think you learned something from that adversity?
Yeah, absolutely. I think adversity teaches you resilience. People often look at very successful people in life and think they've been successful their whole life. Particularly in sporting, you think about the great Muhammad Ali, right? One of the greatest boxing champions of all time. Even he got knocked down. He got hit many, many times. And so this idea of adversity, I think, can be a very powerful, galvanizing driver of achievement if you channel it in the right way. And I think that's all about attitude. So the way that you approach problems and the way that you approach opportunities, adversity, if channeled the right way, for me at least, has been a very powerful enabler of my career.
I love that. Okay, my next question is about career advice. What's the best piece of career advice you've ever been given?
The best piece of career advice would probably have to be the only thing that you don't get back in life is time. And I think that has had quite a moving impact on me, both in my career and my personal life. What I'd say is that it creates a real sense of urgency. It's this bias to action, that the opportunities that you're given don't necessarily come around again. Door opens, take the opportunity, but also that you're not a passenger. So you can really, take ownership and accountability for the decisions and the pathway and the momentum in the direction with which you want to go.
I love that. Now, Mark, on that note, we are going to take a short break, but don't go away. We're going to come back very soon and open the chatterbox. Welcome back to 15 Minutes with the Boss. I'm here with Mark Tepperson, the Chief Executive of Baby Bunting. Now, Mark, this is our section called the Chatterbox. In front of you is a lovely brown shiny box inside which are about 15 questions. I'm going to ask you to have a bit of a rummage, fish some out one by one, and we'll get going with some more Q&A.
All right, let's have a look here.
Who in your family has inspired your work ethic? And can I also add to that, who inspired in you the entrepreneurial spirit?
Very clearly, my 2 biggest inspirations have been my parents. My dad and my mum both come from quite diverse backgrounds and fields, but in their own respective ways have taught me and inspired me through my career. My dad, very successful in financial accounting roles, up to finance director of Westfield in the 80s and 90s, working very closely with Frank Lowy. And my mum, who's an artist, who has worked her whole career to tell stories and bring to life various themes in a very creative way. My dad doesn't have a creative bone in his body. My mum is the furthest thing from a financial analyst, but I have been blessed with both left and right brain. So context switching between both the rational and the creative has been a key ingredient, I think, in my career.
And how does her creativity play a role in your work? How do you use creativity in work?
The successful ingredients in entrepreneurship is imagination, courage, and capital. And I was really blessed with the balance of what my home life looked like with my parents' influence, and then some of my early career experiences, both working shoes and socks. I started my own business. I ended up selling that to a public company. So I went on the entrepreneurial journey and then went into a corporate journey. That gave me this appreciation of those three ingredients, the three legs of the stool, if you will, that I still reflect on today as being really key ingredients in the success of an entrepreneurial journey.
Oh, I love that. Okay, have another fish in the box. What are your favourite interview questions when hiring someone and why?
There's two streams to this. The first one is, at the core, I really want to understand how somebody thinks, so problem-solving abilities. And then I've got two more left of field questions that I ask. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to swear, but the first one is, tell me about your biggest up. And I use that language very specifically.
Why is that?
It catches people off guard, but what I'm really looking for is the honesty of the answer and the reflection on the mistake. I talk a lot about winning or learning, and I think that's an attitude and a mindset. If you beat yourself up every time you fail at things, that's not a healthy way, and I think anybody would reflect upon the fact that they've learnt more from their mistakes than they have from their wins. But I think that question gives me an insight into the honesty, and then how have they reflected on that? How has that impacted them?
Interesting. And the second one?
The second one is, describe your desk to me.
Goodness. And what's behind that question?
So what's behind that question? There's no right or wrong answer to this question. What I have found is people with a very tidy, clean desk, almost nothing on the surface, will typically tend to work on one thing at a time and take it to completion and move on. People with a chaotic, messy desk, lots of piles, they'll tell you that they know where everything is a multitasker. They're working on lots of things at the same time. There's no right or wrong, but in terms of how I can get the best out of them or what I'm going to be getting into, it helps me make assessments on, is this the type of role where you need to be a multitasker? Or is this the type of role where, precision perhaps, or the task and completion is of greater importance? Now, it's not a science, it's an observation, but those things help me get a sense of the person in front of me without them telling me these types of things.
Interesting. Okay, I'm going to think about that. I would argue that I have a fairly tidy desk, but I have no choice but to multitask. Anyway, maybe I don't quite fit the mold. Have another fish in the box?
All right, let's see what we've got here.
When was the last time you gave up doing something or had to quit something because it wasn't working? And what did you learn?
Again, I'd go back to the earlier story we were talking about, which was undergraduate university. So with just 3 subjects left, I decided that this was not the pathway for me. And at the time, I made the decision to quit.
So did you finish university?
I didn't finish my undergraduate, but after I sold my business to the public company, I went back and actually did 2 master's degrees. I did a Master of Management and I did an MBA. And this was call it 8 years after, and I felt like I was ready. I felt like my entrepreneurial journey had helped me bridge the gap of learning. It was real experience. I had a thirst for knowledge. I just wanted to know more. I wanted to know if I could have made better decisions or could have thought about something in a different way. I wasn't the top student, but I was certainly in the top, quartile of the student cohort. And that was certainly a very proud moment for me because it was almost like I had made good on something that I had given up on. It was full circle for me.
Interesting. And what do you think the lesson is there, that sometimes you absorb information and can absorb education, but it's got to be at the right time?
Yeah, I don't think that there is a linear pathway. I think that there are many different ways to achieve your goals. You've got to be able to listen to your inner voice. You've got to be able to trust yourself about the things that are right and that are wrong. And just because it didn't work the first time doesn't mean it's not worth trying again.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I love that. On that note, Mark, well done. You have passed the Chatterbox with flying colours. I now have one last question for you, which is, If you weren't the chief executive of Baby Bunting, what do you think you would be doing?
If money wasn't an object and I could choose anything in the world, probably the greatest experience that I've had is watching the migration in the Serengeti in Africa. So watching the great herds migrate across the Masai Mara and the Serengeti. I was born in South Africa, so I have a connection to the continent. But to go and run a reserve, run a game park for 12 months, to be out in the wilderness and to experience that, to follow the migration for 12 months would be an amazing experience.
Wow, that sounds amazing. If money was a bit of a concern, do you think you would set up another business? Would you do that all over again?
It's an interesting question. I think that my superpowers are in scaling businesses. So the 1 to 100. I don't enjoy the 0 to 1 as much as the scaling from the 1 to 100. I would love to find myself, and I love what I do today, so I'm not looking for anything at this point in time. But, if I was to be doing something different, the opportunity to scale something and work with great people.
And what is it about the scaling that you really love more so than the initial building of the business?
I like the challenge. So I've been involved in businesses that have huge ambition, that are trying to redefine categories or that are reimagining experiences for customers. And so the 1 to 100, scaling something, reimagining an opportunity and going after it, those are the things that really excite me. It's the type of work and then the type of people you get to work with in achieving that. That's where my soul gets fed. That's where my energy source comes from.
So it sounds like you've got two fantastic options to pursue if you weren't doing your current job. And just like that, our 15 minutes is up. Thank you so much for allowing us to spend 15 minutes with the boss.
Thanks, Sally. Great to be here.
And thank you to everyone for listening. If you like the podcast and you want to hear more, consider sharing the podcast or writing a review, as it helps us to reach more people. And follow us wherever you get your podcasts. At the Financial Review, we investigate the big stories about markets, business and power. For more, go to afr.com and you can subscribe to the Financial Review, the daily habit of successful people, at afr.com/subscribe. This podcast was hosted by me, Sally Patton, produced and edited by Mandy Coulin and Iona Rennie. Head of audio is Alex Gow, and our executive producer is Fiona Buffini.
The Australian Financial Review.